Bobby's joining us in a second.
Right. 1, 2, 6. 6. One more needed. Come on, who's it to be? There'll be someone who's gone to get a cup of coffee. From the previous one.
I've got 7 cats.
5. Someone just slipped in. So I've got to scroll down, haven't I? Okay, off we go. Ready to fire.
Hi, Dan.
Welcome everybody after the summer break to our September meeting.
Hi, Dan.
Can you turn your, or certainly your microphones off? I don't know whether the audio, the visual bit flags up the system as it does in other meetings I've been in. However, we have some apologies for absence. I've got David Welsh, who may well not be able to join us because of a meeting in Coventry, or he may be late. Are there any others? Oh yes, I remember he said at the lead members group, yes. Okay, so no others. Do we have declarations of interest? No. Right, so if we move on, oh gosh, I have to turn this on. I've had news that Councillor Lynette Kelly will be joining us at the meeting today on Coventry. Are there any other people who aren't committee members with us today? Let's have a look. No?
Hello, Councillor Hartley. It's Tom Painter. I'm part of the agenda item a little bit later on. Would you prefer me to dial out and dial back in close to the time, or are you happy for me to remain on the call with my mute on?
You're welcome to stay. You're an officer from you're an officer. Do we have other press here or people from other local authorities, from Transport Scrutiny and so on? Sorry, Overview Scrutiny? No? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So some people attend, and we've had people coming through on the chat room, haven't we? Okay, I had news that Lynette Kelly from Coventry would be tuning in and joining us. Okay. As remarked, I must point you in the direction of it being Metro's 21st anniversary today, Richard, and I know you've prepared something to go out to commemorate that, and that you've done taken further activities to involve Roger Horton in that through photographs and so on in the history of the Metro and so on. So I would thank you for that, Richard. Yes, 21 today is quite an important landmark, though we celebrated the 20th last year. Since last meeting, of course, we've had the return of students, pupils to school, and more people returning to work. There's been some additional funding to support journeys to school, and Transport the West Midlands working closely with the 7 authorities, so we supply, you see what the services are supplied as necessary. Because of the increase in patronage, however slight, 3% of the journeys, it's that bus journeys I should think, but of journeys are actually oversubscribed, and so operators have provided extra vehicles to pick those increased numbers up. It may be an extra single decker on a double decker route just to scoop up people at peak times who may be left behind or will have to wait for the next one to come along. Of course, there's an issue with drivers and vehicles there that will need to be brought in. Of course, there are plenty of coach drivers, particularly around National Express, who could be drafted in to help. I think it's mentioned it in one of the reports, but I mean, I must reinforce that bus levels of patronage are the highest in the UK. However, they fall short of what we used to be, but they are the highest in the UK, which is pleasing. There was a news article, an article on Greater Manchester and their transport issues. I think it's yesterday that I caught, and it's always pleasing to see that we're leading the field, and the ticketing issues too. We're already ahead of the pack on that before the crisis, and it's good to see that we're still forging ahead. So I've got some other points here. There's lots of work being going on at bus stations and major interchanges, supporting passengers, especially pupils and students returning to education, handing out masks and so on. And it's encouraging. Also, we've asked our bus passenger champions whether they would like to volunteer to be on duty at interchanges and the official bus stations to assist other passengers on their journeys, and some of them have stepped forward. That's a really good way of keeping our champions engaged throughout this difficult period. The Longbridge car park, multi-storey car park, is nearing completion now, and we'll have some photographs and a report on that distributed to TDC members when the work is finally completed and it's ready to be fully commissioned. Electric buses in Coventry, on top of the 19 buses that went live from the Yardley Wood Garage in Birmingham, another 9 now are on the 9 route in Coventry. Pleasing to see. So we'll be interested to get some feedback on that. We know from the Birmingham situation that they've been very well received by passengers. Let's hope that in turn encourages more people to return to using the bus. It's sad to note that Horsey Travel, based in Coventry, and that area of our region, have gone into administration. They were struggling before the crisis, certainly, and of course they've got their coach division that they run as well. However, there's been quite a marathon effort to ensure that school services have been taken on by other operators. I believe Stagecoach have stepped in to take on some of those services now. On bus stations, the Wi-Fi facility at Walsall bus station is on a soft trial at St Paul's. It's free of charge, so some innovation happening there. It'll be interesting to see how the customers, the passengers using Walsall St Paul's adapt and take it on. And Coventry Pool Meadow bus station, nearing its completion. I think the plans have changed since we first had a visit there some time ago now. So that will be ready for the City of Culture, and we'll be hearing about that at a future meeting to see what it's going to look like and what the themes are and so on, and how much better it will be for all concerned beyond the City of Culture, of course. So the notes. There are plenty of other developments mentioned later on the agenda in the various reports. So that's my chair's remarks for today. Can we now move to the minutes of the last meeting to look at them for accuracy? Anybody like to speak? Hands up if you wish to speak. I'm not seeing anybody. Does nobody want to speak? Okay.
Me.
Oh, sorry, I can't see you. Where are you? Who's
I'm
me?
down here. I'm Diana.
Oh, Diana. Okay. Come on. I can't see any hands. What's going on?
Matters are rising. I'm a bit too far ahead.
We haven't gone on to the action tracker yet.
No, sorry.
Let's do. If there are no comments on the accuracy of the minutes, let's now move on to item 5, the action tracker. I think there's only one action that's not been fulfilled yet, and that's the crime statistics from Mark Babington.
That was what I was going to mention in my.
Okay. Well,
okay.
Raise it now, Diana, because we talked about it earlier, didn't we?
We did it, yes, we did. And last time we did ask Mark to do this, and he hasn't done it. So I think you and I have both been trying to get, he should have given us a fortnightly report, and he hasn't done. But I think you'll find he's due to speak to us probably the next meeting or the one after, certainly. So maybe we'll get an update before then.
Yeah. I think we need to see it at the Bus Alliance too.
Yeah.
See what's happening there. And we had way back in July, I discussed with Lietio that we should send this sort of information out to the bus passenger champions to keep them in the loop, to keep them informed. It's the sort of thing we would have shared with them quarterly briefings. So that's something which we'd very like to see, just what the trends are in crime and so on. And what steps we're taking to deal with it. Any other comments on the action tracker, please?
Hi, Kath. I've got my hand raised if I can.
Oh, yeah, Timothy, right, yeah. Okay. Are you ready to go, Tim?
It was actually Robert speaking then, and Tim's also got his hand up as well.
All right, sorry, I spotted Tim first. Decide between yourselves who goes first, or does one a follow up to the original?
I'll go first then, since
okay.
Yeah,
that's the order the buttons were pressed anyway.
Okay, sorry.
So I just wanted to pick up on the action track on the third one down, which is the Restore Your Railway line. Thank you very much for the briefing note that was sent round. But I understand all 5 bids are going to need additional work done on them, and really, it's a request that at the next meeting we can either in a meeting or in a briefing session beforehand get an update on the progress of what additional work is actually being done to make sure we strengthen those bids. Because clearly we've got to make sure that everything that can be done is done to put in the best possible bids to secure that funding.
Indeed. Roger, did you want to? Roger Horton. Oh, sorry, Roger Lawrence, sorry.
Thanks, Kath. I'm confident that our teams are working on this. We have a West Midland Rail executive meeting,
Indeed,
I think, tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning,
and we can perhaps pick up where we are there, where Malcolm's there. Tom is on the call, isn't he?
Yes,
Tom
he
may
is.
be able to give you some better information.
Tom Painter, are you still there?
I am indeed, Councillor. Yeah. I don't have the exact answers to the questions raised by the councillor, but Councillor Lawrence, absolutely right. We've got the board meeting tomorrow as an opportunity to discuss it. But I'll also take an action to speak to the member of the WMRE team who's leading on the Restoring Your Railway to get that information in a format that can be shared with everybody on TDC.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, we'll speak again about that tomorrow morning. Thank you.
Catherine, can we just also record the request to have an update at the next meeting as well? Because obviously between when that note's sent round and November's meeting, I'm sure some more work will be done.
Okay, well, we'll put that onto the agenda somewhere as appropriate for the November meeting. Is that okay, Dan? Dan, can you make a note of that for Wednesday? Okay, thank you. Oh, Timothy, Tim.
It's a variation on the theme, because I was also going to raise Restoring Your Railways.
Yeah.
Bobby has raised some of the points I was going to raise. At the last meeting, I was told that the rail segment was twice monthly to TDC, and that the next one was due for November anyway. But it doesn't appear to be on the forward plan. But obviously, Dan is taking that on board anyway. But rereading both the briefing notes of June and July that, as TDC members, we've been sent, as I understand it, 3 of the schemes are very much WMRE schemes, and 2 of the schemes are BCC schemes for restoring your railway. And my question is, how is WMRE helping the Birmingham City Council in terms of the 2 schemes that they actually propose, which, while Birmingham are leading on them, would also have an impact, as I understand it, on the Walsall and Solihull metropolitan borough areas?
Okay. Tom?
Do you want me to come back on that, or Tom? Tom, do you want to go first, and then I'll finish up?
Yes, absolutely, Laura. So I know for all the schemes that were submitted that have just been referred to, WMRE officers provided input either in a supporting role or in a leading role, utilising the experience and contacts with the industry that exist within the team. So whilst I don't necessarily have the details to hand, I know that the team was very heavily involved and continues to be heavily involved with partner authorities on all the projects that are submitted, including those from Birmingham City Council.
And I think there were joint letters of support, Councillor Huxtable, both ways. Yeah. So for WMRE to BCC and BCC to the WMRE scheme. So I think it's sort of, I think the attitude we've taken is it doesn't necessarily matter who fronts the bid, but they all rely on the same amount of data. And as you say, they interrelate. So but we're working really closely with Birmingham on that.
Okay. Could I come back then, please?
Well, you're breaking up a bit, Tim.
Okay, can I come back?
That's been, yes.
Okay. Could I suggest that WMRE / Birmingham City Council just look, therefore, at stakeholder support, because, and I can take this offline if you want, but there seems to be several notable admissions from stakeholders who would, I would have thought, be very supportive of these schemes, but to whom we don't appear to have approached, or if we have approached, we haven't got any comments back at all. So, I'm just concerned, like Councillor Alden is that where we can maximise our opportunities for success, we're not actually doing so.
I'll pick that up directly. I'll make sure that gets fed back. Absolutely. Okay. And then maybe we could pick up offline, especially if you have specific ideas of people who we should be approaching that we're not.
Well, just for example, we talk about in one of the bids the Castle Vale / Castle Bromwich railway station, which obviously is very close to Ted's ward, Councillor Richards' ward. Well, and indeed, I believe Councillor Richards actually has seen it in operation a couple of years back. But there's been no approach to the MP that covers Castle Bromwich, and the paperwork, the briefing note, quite clearly states he hasn't been approached. So you've got someone who I would imagine is very willing to support it at a parliamentary level, and we haven't even contacted them. And there are other examples.
Okay. If you leave that with me, I'll pick that up directly with WMRE.
I know that Roger Lawrence has been in hospital and may be due for further treatment, but might we have a lead members group for rail and metro between now and the next meeting? Roger?
Yeah, I've been liaising with Leo only over the weekend until I know the exact date for my surgery, which I think it's I'm now from today's information could well be a week on Friday. I don't want to set anything up, but once that's up and once I'm clear what the likely recovery period is, which could be anything from 3 weeks to 6 weeks, I will try and organise something I can't imagine that the recovery period would preclude an online meeting unless they take my teeth out at the same time, which I don't think they're planning to.
Blimey. Gosh. Okay, so we can tackle it at that forum too and keep tabs on that. Thank you for that. Where are we? Any other? Is that the action tracker we were on?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Any other action tracker remarks? No? Okay. Item 6. Any matters arising from the minutes that we aren't on the agenda and we haven't already picked up? No? Okay. Thank you. I've had no correspondence as it relates to the whole TDC and no news of any petitions of over 250 signatures or any others for that matter, either at the Putting Passengers First Lead members group or directly to this committee. Financial monitoring report, we're now on item 8. Pervez?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, this TDC Financial Monitoring Report 2020-21, Madam Chairman, this report sets out the regular financial monitoring position for transport for the 2020-21 financial year for consideration by the committee and reports expenditure up to 31st July 2020. The key points to note are the year-to-date revenue position up to the end of July 2020 reflects a favorable variance of £93,000. As members are aware, favorable variances across the portfolio are offset by significant income drops owing to COVID-19 pandemic, and it is anticipated that income will be impacted for some months, albeit at a gradually lower level. These income drops are partially mitigated by government support for light rail, subsidized bus services, and reimbursement for an element of lost sales, fees, and charges across the transport network. The improved full-year forecast position now reflects an overall deficit for the year of 1.6 million, a reduction of £7 million from the initial forecast shared at the last meeting of the committee. The position has been made possible by better forecasts for transport-related income, government grants awarded, and proactive action taken to generate in-year savings. A program of productivity and efficiency savings has now been developed to deliver saving along with the fundamental business transformation review also underway to deliver efficiency into next financial year and behind. It is proposed that remaining deficit of £1.6 million is met from existing one-off earmarked reserves primarily set aside at the end of the 2019-20 financial year as the crisis began to unfold. An update on the medium-term position will be provided at the next meeting of the committee. Madam Chairman, there is a favorable variance of £22.6 million on the overall transport for West Midland Capital Programme, which is primarily made of the following variations. Number 1, Wensbury to Brierley Hill Metro Extension, which is £5.2 million favorable, reflecting the impact of COVID-19 restrictions. Number 2 is Birmingham East Side Metro Extension, which is £3.2 million favorable, reflecting HS2 utility diversions not commenced due to the final sign-off of the development agreement being later than planned. Number 3 is Sprint Hagley Road, £3.2 million favorable, reflects an ongoing review of scheme design. Commonwealth Games, which is number 4. Commonwealth Games Programme, which is £4.8 million favourable. The main variance being the A45 Sprint Scheme, which is £1.6 million favourable, and the A34 Sprint Scheme, £2.2 million favourable as a result of COVID-19 restrictions. Other major scheme, which is number 5, £1.7 million favourable, primarily reflecting COVID-19 restrictions on progression of the Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Testbed Scheme, the Longbridge Connectivity Package, and the A435 Alistair Road Bus Priority Scheme. Madam Chairman, before I hand over to Louise, I want to say on behalf of the Labour Group, thank you very much. The prudent decision they are making, and we are with them during this difficult time. Let's work together. Let's not panic. Steady as we go. Thank you. Over to Louise.
Louise?
Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing to add to Councillor Akhtar's summary. Quite comprehensive. Thank you.
Blimey. Any comments, please, or questions? Oh.
Chairman, Ted
anyone,
Richards.
Anyone from the committee, first of all?
Yeah, Ted Richards, Madam Chairman.
Oh, Ted, right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, can I just seek clarification on, in the May figures, we were told there was no change in an annual budget of 268.6 million, yet in this month's report, it says the annual's been reduced to 255.6 million, which is below the average, the annual of 276.3. So which was right, 268.6 or 276.3, please?
Thank you, Councillor Richards. I'll have to come back to you on that. I haven't got all of the information in front of me at the moment, but I'll give you, I'll circulate a note that just clarifies that, because there has been some work ongoing since we last met to revise the forecast outturn for the Transport Capital Programme. So it's possible it's changes in forecast, but I'll just clarify that in a note that I'll share.
Thank you very much.
There could have been some reprofiling that would hit that forecast. Any other queries from people on the committee? I noticed Kathy Baton's got a hand up. Anyone else? Right, Kathy.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a bit of a query in relation to the Brierley Hill Metro project. And I remember going back to having a conversation with Linda Horn a few weeks, well, probably a couple of months ago now, where there was some concern, or that there may be an issue going forward around the drop in fare box revenue, and then the ability to borrow against that to fund the project. Where are we at with that? Is fare box revenue going up at a level we would have anticipated and are comfortable with? And is that then going to allow for us to borrow against it for the schemes and projects we've got in pipeline?
I think that's one for me, Councillor Hartley, if that's okay.
Yes. Oh, right.
So at the moment, obviously, ever since the lockdown, obviously we've not seen fare box revenue anywhere like where we would expect it to be. We have been able to do some work with government to get financial support. The latest round of financial support we have runs till October 24th, and then we will be back into negotiating, hopefully, another 12-week settlement on light rail. This isn't just us, it's every light rail operator up and down the country. So it is absolutely impossible to say. So I know we've been working together to run a number of scenarios against what we're expecting for future forecast. And then I think also, hopefully, Councillor Baton, for just some comfort, we've highlighted this to the DFT and to Treasury colleagues, I think through the submission that we're hoping to make to the comprehensive spending review, suggesting that any significant drop in fares will have a knock-on impact against our ability to borrow. And so we're working, I think we can only say we're working through it. It's just impossible to give you any comfort and certainty. The Metro has done a fantastic job. It has recovered faster than any other light rail system. We are having passengers back on, but obviously with social distancing, we cannot carry the same number of passengers. If we're able to continue to get settlements to help top that back up from government, that leaves us in a good position. However, obviously any further restrictions, further lockdowns, anything like that has an impact on the fare box revenue. So it's a challenging position, but it's one that we have made government aware of and are trying to work through, trying to get to a more permanent solution than a 12-week rolling negotiation.
Okay, that's okay, I think. Oh, okay.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, right. Well, thank you both. We'll move on to another part of Bez's empire, financial empire delivery. Item 9, capital programme delivery.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Obviously, I would like to present to the committee the capital programme delivery monitoring report. The committee is recommended to note achievements since the 20th of July meeting of the TDC, to note the progress of deliverables and the outturn of the 2019-20 capital programme, to note where indicated any variation from the baseline programme. Madam Chairman, once again, as we continue in unprecedented times with COVID-19 pandemic and with number of challenges as a result, however, there continues to be positive progress against several projects within the capital program. I would like to highlight the following achievements which have been completed during July and August. Number 1, Paribas Joint Rail and Bus Interchange full business case submitted to GBS LAP on 31st July. Number 2, Bradley Lane Park and Ride has been shortlisted in 2 categories for Brownfields Award 2020, Best Project Preparatory Work and Best Infrastructure Project. Number 3 is University Station, final business case approved at West Midland Combined Authority Board on 24th of July. The committee should note the following exception during the reporting period. Network-wide cycling program 3A, delay in completion to minor work due to COVID-19 impacts on staff resources. Number 2 is digital panel rollout, completion of installation delayed due to Clear Channel staff still being furloughed due to the COVID-19. Number 3, network-wide park and ride lighting enhancement, delay in completion of outstanding sites due to increased cost incurred due to contract issues. This has led to a shortfall in available budget. The sponsor is currently seeking alternative funding opportunities to establish a revised baseline completion date. And with that, Madam Chairman, I hand over to Sandeep to pick out any other details or answer questions. Thank you.
Sandeep.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Councillor Akhtar. Councillor Akhtar has provided all the salient points of the report, so just happy to take any questions that there may be from the committee.
I have Roger Lawrence and then Tim. Roger.
Thank you, Chair. Just to preserve Black Country honour, could please members note it's Braidley Lane, not Bradley Lane.
Yeah.
Peculiar in here. And it's has it been Braidley Lane has been shortlisted for a couple of awards. Do we know anything about the outcome? Did it win?
Not yet, Councillor. They are noted within the report, but we will keep the committee informed of any outcomes.
No news yet. Okay. Tim.
Thank you, Chair. Several of the capital projects that we just talked about, are part of the Commonwealth Games, and indeed integral to the Commonwealth Games. I do note, and I raise it here, but it could have been raised elsewhere, that again, we haven't had a specific update, a dedicated update on the Commonwealth Games transport plan for some time, and would very much welcome that. And I do note that Anne Shaw is coming to the next meeting of TDC. So could I put forward the suggestion that Anne could also pick up the Commonwealth Games transport plan in the round, given the what we've heard about the capital projects in the report?
Okay. Yes. This is the sort of thing we deal with at the pre-agenda meeting, but yes, we'll take that on board.
I was on holiday for the last pre-agenda, I'm afraid.
Okay. Any other comments? Well, does anyone want to comment on what Tim suggested? I don't see any problem with that, though our agendas seem to be swelling rather.
Councillor, if I may just come in very quickly on the point that Councillor Huxtable has raised. There used to be I think an every 6 months report that used to come to the committee on Commonwealth Games transport projects. So again, I'm not sure if that has just fallen off the forward plan. But that's probably the right one to pick up those projects.
Yes, because is that on the City of Culture? We said we'd have a regular update. Yeah. That's fine. Do you still want to speak, Tim?
Yes, if it's helpful. We obviously, when we met in a physical setting, had a seminar in the morning where some of these issues were picked up, given the broad nature of the agenda, to take it out of extending the actual meeting. Again, if we wanted to do those seminars virtually on things like the Commonwealth Games transport plan, I personally wouldn't have an objection.
No, neither would I. I'm thinking about officer availability and so on Monday mornings. Would that be viable to meet at, say, 10 o'clock for an hour to focus on these ongoing issues or issues that occur? Laura?
I'm sure we can make it work across the team. It's happy to do it.
Okay. I mean, or even a special one in October in the morning, on a Monday morning. I don't know. This is something we must discuss. But yes, I think we should. With this emergency carrying on like this, I think we should make way to reinstate our more informal briefings. Okay, so that's accepted. Right, any other comments on the capital programme delivery monitoring report?
I'm indicated.
Oh, sorry. Who's indicated?
Diana. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I can't see you. Diana.
Well, I'm here.
I don't know where you are. There you are. I didn't see your hand going up. Okay.
But very quickly, we've got the network item 15, the cycling programme, which seems to be it's gone forward at Wolverhampton and Solihull, but you've still got it on green amber. Is that because it's not? Why is that? Why is it not now on green? Item 15. Installation of cycling parking for Birmingham New Street completed. Says.
If I may, Councillor, the reason why it's shown as green amber is one of the installations at Birmingham New Street, which is highlighted as one of the variations to the programme, is running a little bit behind programme. And as a result of that, it is throwing it into green amber. But we hope to resolve that very soon and get it back to a full green status.
Yeah, well, it's not really for now, but I hope are they fairly secure? I mean, they're not being pinched or anything, as far as you know.
No. What it basically it was just literally the final the final sign-off of the installation is just been delayed. That's all it is, and that is what is throwing the overall reporting status into a green amber. But as I say, we're confident that will be resolved by the next reporting cycle.
Okay.
No pun intended.
Right, thank you. Okay, any further comments, questions, contributions? No? Okay, well, thank you, Sandeep and Pervez again. Thank you for that. Let me move on to item 10. Now, I've asked Dan if he will provide all 7 lead members for the 7 authorities with a forwardable attachment for them to send item 10 out to members in the 7 authorities to keep them up to date, just to bring them along, that they know certainly what's been happening, not from start to finish in the COVID emergency, but the steps towards recovery, try and bring the network back to as good a position as we possibly can. So you will be receiving, the 7 lead members will be receiving these as attachments, so that you can arrange, or you can send for yourself. You can send them out to your councillor colleagues in your 7 authorities. Now, we got to. Oh, yes, Anne Shaw. Well, first of all, Anne Shaw. The transport overview, yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. There was a paper that went out with the papers, as Councillor Hartley's just mentioned, which just gives you a brief overview of what we've been doing at Transport for West Midlands, along with our local authorities and other partners in relation to COVID recovery. So obviously we're operating within the Local Resilience Forum structures and reporting into the sort of strategic coordination group in terms of the response around transport. Just to say that obviously following the initial dismantling of the transport system, we are now very busily putting it back together and preparing for some of those changes as lockdown was eased, and then obviously preparing for changes as new measures and restrictions have come into force as from tomorrow as well. So in terms of the current performance of the network, we are seeing people returning to public transport. So last Friday, if I just give you some stats, Metro was operating at around about 65-69% of its previous patronage. Bus was at around about 58%, and rail a slower recovery, but still increasing in terms of 29% as well. And we're also seeing traffic returning to our network, and approximately about 90% of pre-COVID levels on our highway network. The profile of traffic is slightly different. We're seeing it more spread out throughout the day, but we are starting to see the return of morning and evening peaks, particularly following schools restart as well. So the transport cell, as I've mentioned, is a sort of combination of local authority teams who are responsible for transport, West Midlands Police operators and colleagues from across TFWM as well, who've got specific responsibilities. Our main focus over the last few weeks has been the return to school. So we've been doing the analysis to understand what the impact will be on all of our public transport system and adjusting the capacity as required, as well as looking at where that demand may exceed that capacity as well. So using some of the other funding that we've had made available to us to introduce wider measures to encourage children and college students to walk or cycle as well. And within that, colleagues within TFWM have been doing direct liaison meetings with each local authority, also the education teams within each local authority as well as meeting with college principals as part of that, making sure that we're able to sort of, through the analysis, anticipate where that demand will be and strengthening the network around that as well. In addition to that, obviously, we had some concerns about the research was telling us that more people were likely to drive children to school. So we've been putting in other measures in terms of travel demand management programme, where we've used the funding to bring in 5 travel planners who were working through the local authorities and directly with schools to help encourage children to walk and cycle to school as part of that as well, particularly targeting around those areas where the data analysis identified those watch spots as well. And I think we've been into about 130 schools so far as part of that. In addition to that, we're also concerned about road safety. So we're looking at ways in which we can also encourage road safety as well. Our attention also has been to look at and prepare for where we may see additional restrictions that may come in, given particularly when Leicester was sort of first on the cards around sort of additional lockdown measures, and obviously that's gone around with the rest of the country. Obviously, we've had announcements coming last week in relation to wider measures to deal with the increase of infection rates here in Birmingham and Solihull and Sandwell as well. Within that, though, there is no requirement for us to reduce the transport system. People are still able to travel around the network, and what we'll be doing is to reinforce that we want people to travel around the network safely. So making sure that people are adhering where they're required to face coverings, particularly school children, and then also making sure that social distancing measures are able to be maintained throughout the networks as well. So we're also monitoring the networks on a daily basis through the teams at TFWM and making sure that we're able to respond to any incidents or any sort of unanticipated things that have happened on the network, so that we can put solutions in place around some of those as well. So there's been a lot of work in preparation and still a lot of work in terms of monitoring the network as well. But I think John Hayes is on the call, and also Tom Painter, who will be able to sort of talk about specific things that have been done at the modal level as well. So I'll just leave the summary there.
Thank you. Thank you. John, do you want to add anything or expand on the bus situation?
Yeah, I'd just like to expand on the note that was circulated, because it was it's obviously a very fast-paced situation that we're working with. So in some of the stuff in the note has moved on quite considerably. Some elements Anne has already touched on. So patronage, we're seeing increasing now on bus in particular to around 60% of pre-COVID. I guess something that we are seeing because of schools and colleges coming back, and as a result of that, parents going back into work, is a greater concentration of people travelling at the peak periods, so the AM and PM peak. So we're having to be mindful of that and just making sure that the level of resource that we've got available is focused in those areas. It's no surprise, it's just there was a change in the way people were travelling during the lockdown, because their travel was spread out over the day. So we are having to encourage a slight change in behaviour and make sure the network can adapt to it. With regards to funding support, the DfT have changed their terms and conditions related to CBSSG slightly, and they've given us some longer term notification, if you like, that they'll give us 8 weeks notice of any loss of funding, but at the moment they're not giving us that indication. So it's looking like that funding will continue, and we are in active discussions with the DfT about what happens when that funding finishes. Is it a tapering away of funding, or is it something that's completely different? And early indications suggest it might be linked to the national bus strategy that we are engaging with them on. The DfT continue to pay bus operators BSOG as well at pre-COVID levels, and likewise TFWM are continuing to pay ENCTS payments at a rate should COVID not have happened, and we're also paying tenders at that rate as well. And all this is for supporting the sector to ensure that it can continue to operate despite the significant reduction in patronage. Anne mentioned the £2.5 million that we've had from the DfT to provide enhanced capacity for the home to school provision. Again, that was just for the first half of the autumn term, and we're engaging still with the DfE to understand what happens beyond that. We've got an indication that there will be some funding that continues, and that we'll be able to utilise that to provide that additional capacity. Passenger information, we've moved on quite considerably. We've now got all of the roadside information up to date. The information team here have done the biggest ever change and updated significant. I think it's about 12,500 bus stops that they updated. But we've also agreed with operators we're now going to do a monthly churn of those changes, so the information should be much better up to date than it has been in the last couple of months or so. I think members are probably aware that the registration process is very different now, so operators can change services within 3 days of making us aware. So it's been quite difficult of keeping the passenger information up to date, but we've got an agreed process now with bus operators. We'll continue to push out our key messages around face coverings and social distancing. You've probably seen in the press and some of the reports that we've put out that adherence to face coverings has dropped slightly on the network. We had it at around 90% at one point, but with students and pupils coming back, that's dropped slightly, and the Safer Travel team are out ensuring that we can educate and promote use of face coverings, and we're working more closely with the schools and colleges to and our own staff to make that happen. We're seeing increased numbers of people going through our bus stations and interchanges, and the team there are proactively putting in place and revising their operational processes to ensure that social distancing is adhered to and that people queue for the bus as opposed to sort of gathering around the entrance to the bus. And we're looking to adopt some of that best practice wider across the network and trying to put in measures to adhere and encourage operators to do that. The NHS shuttles continue and have been very successful. So to date, we've carried about 9,500 passengers. These are shuttle services from 3 of our park and ride sites taking NHS staff to hospitals. So we're continuing to operate those through NEAT, so National Express Accessible Transport. And as Anne said, we've very much been focusing on the schools return. There was a big network change on the 30th of August that provided over 100% of previous mileage across the network, and we're also buying in additional provision, and some bus operators are utilising coaches to provide that on dedicated transport services. We're continuing to monitor and evaluate that and making changes as we go, and bringing in additional vehicles into the fleet to provide that capacity. And that's almost a sort of a day by day approach that we're taking, and we've had some through today where services are starting to reach capacity. So it's a bit of an ongoing battle, but one that we feel we're on top of at this moment in time. I don't know if Tom wants to come in from a rail perspective now.
Yeah,
Chair.
We'll take questions when we've heard from Tom.
Thank you. Yes, from a rail perspective, again, as per John's opening remark, things have moved on a little bit since this note was drafted, not least the fact that patronage is up on the 15% figure that was reported there. But as Anne rightly pointed out, rail patronage is recovering at a slower rate than we're seeing on some of the other modes. Probably a number of reasons for that. I suspect one is the difference in type of sort of usage with the rail network in this part of the world, often being for commuting into sort of urban centres by white collar workers, and of course with large number of those employers not yet having full complement of office workers back, then of course that means a larger number of people staying at home, working from home, and therefore not making journeys by rail as they may have done previously, but I'm sure that is just one of a number of reasons as to why rail patronage has not recovered at quite the same rate. The main focus of activity, just as it has been for bus over the last few weeks, has been around the return to schools, and the return to schools operation seems to have gone reasonably well from a rail perspective. Interestingly, actually, student season ticket numbers, these are products being sold by West Midlands Trains in particular, have now actually started to exceed the number that they were selling prior to COVID, which is sort of very, very curious, and I think it's taken everyone by surprise a little bit. And WMT are doing some work there to understand exactly what's driving that. Because whilst patronage is low, we would have expected the number of all products, including these particular products, to have fallen short of their pre-COVID levels, but actually on this particular product they've actually exceeded it. WMT have been using some road-based transport to supplement their operation where it's been needed. These are some specific pinch point locations: Worcester, Stratford-upon-Avon, Shirley, Stourbridge being some obvious ones. Face covering compliance on the network generally good, but we have, just as bus, seen a slight deterioration in the proportion of people adhering to the rules. Anecdotally, there's evidence that it's mostly around younger generations, linked to return to schools, no doubt, tail end of the summer holidays. Also, seemingly, again anecdotal, that people who are making sort of intermediate journeys on the sort of fringes of the network, i.e. not going through a major station, are also less likely to adhere to the face mask mandatory requirements. So all the operators have really been trying to push out through their messaging just how important it is for people to wear masks, unless of course they've got legitimate exceptions. Now, I mentioned briefly some of those specific locations. Actually, with the exception of Stourbridge, they're all outside of the West Midlands Combined Authority area, but of course they may well have people from the Combined Authority area travelling to them. So Hagley has been a site that's seen a lot of attention. There's 2 schools very, very close to Hagley railway station, and as a result, a large number of people do travel to their schools via the train. And really pleasing to see the way that the schools, the rail industry and Safer Travel team, for that matter, working together to ensure that site has operated as well as it has. The schools, actually, worth mentioning, have been absolutely fantastic. They've provided, I think, around 10 teachers actually to help with the marshalling of the children, probably helping keep discipline as well, but supplementing the efforts of the Safer Travel team and of the rail industry staff at that station as well. Rail Industries also provided an extra stop in some services, again to help with the capacity challenge at Hagley. Worcester, that's where there's a tight connection at Worcester Shrub Hill from a train coming at Foregate Street, but again that seems to have gone well over the first week, and there are sort of rules in place that say that the train can be held for a period of time to enable that connection to be made. So not declaring victory on that one yet, certainly still needs to have an eye kept on it, and ultimately the best solution will be to start that train back from Worcester, Foregate Street via Shrub Hill, and that's something the rail industry is looking to do hopefully for December. Stourbridge, which of course is the one site within the TfWM area, there were some concerns about whether the Class 139 Parry People Mover that operates between Stourbridge Town and Stourbridge Junction could cope with social distance capacity and the desire of pupils to go to Stourbridge Town to go to the college there. And really pleasing to say that the bus team, led by John, actually were fantastic in facilitating the provision of a road-based shuttle service to complement the Parry People Mover, and also add another option, as well as of course walking the mile between the 2 sites. And probably because of that proactivity of both the bus team, the bus operators and the rail industry, Stourbridge Town Shuttle seems to have coped pretty well with the numbers of people passing through it. And then finally, the other 2 sites I mentioned, both in Warwickshire, Stratford-upon-Avon, there's one particular train, and that's quite busy, that gets in for the morning college start time. And that's where a rail replacement bus from Shirley is being provided to help spread the load and enable that train to continue to operate within safe social distancing. And then finally, some of the Warwick schools, 2 private schools in Warwick that generate some school traffic. That's not West Midlands Trains, that's Chiltern Railways, who are the primary operator there. They're looking to increase the capacity on one particular service. We did actually offer, again through the bus team, some coach support, but in the end Chiltern decided actually they felt like they could mitigate it with a rail solution. So in the end that offer wasn't taken up. But again, it's just another example of where the rail officers and the bus operators have been working with their colleagues in the rail and bus operators to try and provide as much resilience into the network as we possibly can do.
Okay, thank you. I've got one person showing, and that's Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, what are we doing to help the small bus operators survive the current crisis? We know that one company went bust in Coventry. There may be other small operators struggling. So what are we doing to help the small bus operators? And the second question is about the face coverings. I come across some drivers who feel very afraid to intervene to tell the passengers who are not wearing face coverings. What support are we giving to the bus drivers to make sure that they comply with the face coverings on our transport? And do we have actual figures? How many people we find without the face coverings on all form of public transport? Thank you.
Councillor Hartley, I can come in on the funding for bus operators. So, a slightly long answer, I'm afraid. It's going to be slightly complicated, but there's various elements of support that we're giving to the bus operators. So, firstly, the Department for Transport are continuing to pay bus operators the Bus Services Operators Grant, so BSOG, at pre-COVID levels. This is duty that they pay on fuel, but obviously they haven't been burning as much fuel, so therefore this would have been reduced significantly. But recognising it's a critical piece of funding for the sector, they have continued to pay it. Additionally, the DFT are also paying something called COVID-19 Bus Services Support Grant for commercially operated services. This funding effectively meets the shortfall between the cost of operating 100% of the network and the revenues that the bus operator is coming in. They're not allowed to make a profit, and they're not allowed to pay dividends to their shareholders, but they are allowed to net to zero. So the government are, apart from on services that are already making a loss, so the government are paying that money, and there's reconciliation exercises going on every 4 weeks. Additional to that, the Combined Authority through TfWM are paying the English National Concessionary Travel Scheme payments. So that's a big portion of money that goes to them at a level assuming COVID hadn't happened, and then likewise we are paying tendered mileage at 100% of previous provision. The bus operators can additionally also enter the other government schemes around the grants and furloughing staff, for example. So there has been quite a lot of support out there to enable them to do that. I guess the operators that have are struggling slightly, and the bus operator in Coventry, Talbot Courcy being one of them, is around coaches, because there hasn't been any direct support for that part of the sector, and obviously with holidays, or many people not being able to take holidays, with schools not doing trips, with swimming trips being cancelled, for example, it is very difficult for that part of the sector. We are seeing those bus operators that also provide coaches, they seem to be particularly hit, but they are taking measures to mothball those parts of the operation. So they've sawned vehicles, they've put drivers on furlough, but there are some chinks of light there as well. So we're now starting to use coaches to strengthen the public transport network, as Tom just mentioned, using coaches to provide additional capacity along rail routes. And I know that some schools and trips are starting to come back as well. So there is hopefully some little chinks of light there. But I think that part of the sector has got a long way to go, and some tough times ahead potentially. In terms of supporting bus drivers with face coverings, through the West Midlands Bus Alliance, we've got an agreed protocol, and we're working with the bus operators to encourage drivers to engage with passengers to wear a face covering when they get on the bus. Obviously, once they're on the bus, it's quite difficult for them to enforce it, because they need to drive, but they do have the ability to record any non-compliance on their ticket machines, which then provides the intelligence to the Safer Travel team as to where to focus their sort of engagement with the public, if you like, to then encourage greater use. We've also using our own our own staff and volunteers, particularly around bus stations, bus interchanges, to encourage the use of face coverings before members of the public get on the bus. And obviously it is mandatory to wear a face covering whilst they're in our bus stations as well. We're also got lots of communication messages on vehicles and at bus shelters and at bus interchanges, again encouraging members of the public to wear a face covering when they board the bus and in our infrastructure. I guess one thing for members to note is there are exemptions to wearing face coverings, and we estimate that there's around 10% of the population doesn't have to wear one, either because of physical disability, mental disability, or mental health issues, or indeed if you're too young. So it's only 11 years and over need to wear a face covering in that respect. So there will still be a number of people that aren't required to wear one. Okay, does that answer that question?
Councillor Hartley.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yes, Anne.
Can I just
Did you want to come in? Yeah.
Yeah, just to add into that, in terms of more broadly what we're doing around encouraging or enforcing the use of face coverings where they're required. Obviously, we've done a badge or something that is downloadable so that passengers who do have an exemption are able to display that so that they don't feel under pressure where they've got a genuine reason why they shouldn't wear face coverings. And just to say, Safer Travel have since the sort of scaling back up the transport system, have been doing specific operations led by that intelligence that John's just mentioned, and they have issued over 900 directions to leave public transport. So that's where people who are required to wear face coverings have not, and so they've asked them to leave public transport, and a few of those have turned into fixed penalty notices or other formal action as well. And we've been trying to proactively give that message out in terms of that we are patrolling the network, both on sort of heavy trafficked public transport corridors, whether it's bus or train or tram, and using those directions to leave as well. We also are just in the process of pulling together, because we know a lot of councillors are also getting quite a lot of complaints from the public about their concerns about people not wearing face covering. So we're just in the process of pulling together a more detailed briefing note with some of the frequently asked questions to help councillors and also our operators and others to be able to answer some of the questions that are coming in, or some of the concerns that are coming in from members of the public as well. But we are out on the network proactively monitoring it and making sure that we're carrying out that enforcement where it's required. But obviously with school children, they're a younger, more vulnerable age group. So using things like direction to travel is not something that we want to advocate with our younger population. We do want to make sure that they're encouraged and educated as well. And both Safer Travel and our bus teams have been provided with face coverings, and we have been handing them out to people who turn up on the network without them as well, to encourage them to wear them. And we're continuing to monitor through the CCTV control room what that compliance looks like. So it was, I think there was a question about stats, so it was about 90% and it dropped to about 60%. And so we're very proactively trying to make sure that we're increasing the percentage again, and particularly through some of the engagement that we're doing direct with schools for head teachers to pass information out to parents and then on to their children about the importance where that 11 and above of wearing face coverings on the public transport system, making sure that they're also complying with that through our school toolkit as well, which gives out all of the information that is required to do that.
Thank you, Anne.
Before we move on, at the start of the meeting, I mentioned that I wanted the item 10, A, B, C and D to be circulated to the lead members on the TDC, the 7 authorities, to circulate to all councillors in the West Midlands region. Would we also have a copy of the memo, the frequently asked questions memo, that you referred to circulate?
Yeah, I think
yeah.
So I was just going to say, well, because John's quite right that this paper was prepared on the 2nd of September to meet your deadline for papers. It's moved on considerably since then. So we'll take this note and we'll update it, and then we'll add it. Right. We'll add the information around the sort of frequently asked questions on the briefing note that we're doing, particularly around keeping people safe on the network, and we'll send that round to TDC members and other councillors within the local authorities.
So you will send it to all councillors in the local authority?
We'll send it to the local authorities for them to distribute to their councillors through their usual networks.
Could we have it to the 7 lead members on the TDC?
Yes. Yep, I can do that.
So, I mean, obviously it's come from our committee, and I think we need to have a bit of ownership. But it's a good idea to update the documents we have before us on today's agenda, to add the frequently asked questions and so on. Now, what I've noticed is, from time to time, obviously, I've dealt with inquiries from residents, mainly bus users, directly to me, and from councillors in Birmingham mainly, about the face masks and social distancing. But what I have noticed in the last week, and I've usually dealt with them with National Express, by the way, because they're responsible for the buses. What I've noticed in the last week or so, inquiries about buses being dirty and littered. So I think this is entirely connected with people going back to school and work. I just wondered whether the team had noticed anything on board as they go about their duties. Increased patronage leads to increased litter and so on.
I can come in there, Councillor Hartley. So National Express are actually employing quite a number of mobile cleaners to be out on the network, not just picking up litter, but obviously wiping down hard surfaces and sort of doing a mid-service clean, if you like, to keep passengers safe. And then additionally, all of the operators are doing deeper cleans of their buses overnight to try and reduce the any cross contamination between passengers and staff. I haven't had any reports of increased littering on buses, but what if yeah, well, if that is the case, then we need to identify the services and report those through and get it addressed as best we can.
Harborne, Dudley Road and Soho Road, the ones so far. There we are, thank you. Now, Pete, you've entered the discussion by raising your hand. Did you want to add anything?
Only, Councillor, I think all of the points that were raised. I think though one of the purposes, as was outlined there, is these notes, although they were prepared and are going to be updated. What one of the challenges has been also not looking at just what we've done, but what's coming down the track towards us. And I think picking up on Councillor Lowell's points and the requirement to get some information to all local councillors, I think it's important to note one of the things that has been starting to impact the network over the course of the last week or so for buses particularly is around the levels of general traffic that are returning and congestion. So whilst there are many schemes underway which are looking to try and support the time and punctuality of bus services across the region, then as we move through this phase, then we may need to look and consider how we can ensure best that buses can be kept as punctual and reliable as possible. And I just wanted to put that on councillors' radars, because we are talking to officers across all of your local authority areas, but really ensuring that members of TDC are clear on the criticality of keeping buses punctual and reliable to be able to address all of those great things that Anne and John and Tom set out there is absolutely critical. So we can also lend a point around that within the briefing note that comes out also. Okay. But would seek members' support to just and convey the criticality of that within the local authorities.
Okay, thank you. Right, Tim.
Thank you, Chair.
And Celia.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just raise the concern about...
Ted's on the queue. It's Tim next.
Go first. No, it's Ted,
Tim
go
next.
first.
What? Can I just raise concern over what is a considerable increase in inconsiderate parking around schools? I mean, in my ward alone, it's been horrendous. And I know, talking to our head of highways, we have a major problem now across the borough of considerable inconsiderate parking by parents. I mean, I've had to get the police to remove cars from across people's drives. Parents are parking on grass verges, they're parking on pavements. They have no respect at all for local residents, and it really is causing a major concern. I mean, I take the point which Anne makes about, you know, encouraging more people to walk and cycle. I'm not seeing that. I think there's more and more parents dropping pupils off in cars and in other vehicles. And I know it's a problem we've always had, but I've never seen it so bad. I mean, I've got a situation in my ward, because the school's using a one-way system. I've got something like between 500 and 1,000 parents and grandparents walking up one road, going into the school one way and coming out another. A week last Friday afternoon, there was a punch-up between a resident and a parent because the person had parked across their drive. So, I mean, the police are involved, but they say they've got lack of resources. We've got our civil enforcement officers working as well. But I thought I'd just highlight the problem. It's becoming a major problem.
Is that your car-free school street scheme? Is that still in operation?
Yeah, that's working reasonably well, except we rely on the police to enforce it, and they haven't got the resources. But that is helping. But generally across the borough, talking to our head of highways, it's a major problem now in the borough.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hartley, this is something that we're grappling with across all of the 7 local authorities. So we are seeing a rise in some children, particularly primary schools, where parents are choosing to drive their kids to work. As part of the funding that we've had, we've also got travel demand management funding as well from DFT, and we've used that to bring in 5 full-time travel planners that we've deployed out. So we've increased capacity. Solihull, Councillor Richards, to help sort of go to those schools where we're seeing those problems, and the aim of that is to try and encourage more walking and cycling as well. We were also looking at whether or not the funding that we've received for Schools Restart was able to look at traffic management measures around schools, particularly to support bus movements, but it doesn't seem that that's applicable for that at the moment. And obviously we're waiting with bated breath for the tranche 2 for the Emergency Active Travel Fund as well. And we'll be looking at where those particular projects that have been put forward by the local authorities have some synergy, where we've got some of these problems around the school gate as well. But that was also one of my biggest fears, having worked so hard over the last 10, 15 years to get kids to walk to school, that we would see a re-emergence of people driving their kids to school.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, I think you can come in now, then Celia.
Okay, thank you, James. I think my first comment was going to be that of all the measures that have been outlined, are there any, once this pandemic is over, we would actually like to see continue? So, for example, just to pick one at random, the Stourbridge shuttle between Junction and Town is always busy. Was always busy before COVID, and people were frequently left on the platform and had to wait for the next one. In terms of dealing with that additional capacity, you know, is that something that we're thinking about continuing to reduce those overcrowding issues, as I say, once this pandemic is over? And I'd just like to also mention that I've been very impressed with Chiltern, because Tom mentioned the Warwick schools issue, and I'm aware that, again, pupils were left at Dulwich Station and I think Lapworth Station because of capacity issues on the 2-car train, and the next day Chiltern put in a 4-car train and responded, you know, literally within 24 hours of the problem being drawn to their attention. So I've flagged that one up. And the last comment is that perhaps the reason for an increase in the selling of bus passes to secondary school children is because parents who used to drive to work would, you know, physical work, would drop their children off along the way and combine 2 journeys in one. And if they're not actually working at the physical office, they are now buying a bus pass for their child at secondary school to actually go to the school under their own steam. Whereas that wouldn't be applicable in terms of primary schools, hence why there's still that increase of car journeys to primary schools. Just a thought.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any officer response to that?
Yeah, in relation to the travel passes, it's something that we've been monitoring really carefully, both from those that come via our Swift ticket, as well as with operator tickets as well. We've seen a slower take-up of what we would normally sell on school-specific travel passes in terms of that. But yeah, we have seen this difference on the rail side of things as well. So it's an interesting concept that because there will be some parents who are no longer on their onward journey to work as well. But it's something that we're tracking and we'll be able to provide some information on that at some point as well. But just to say that there is a slower uptake more generally on our school travel passes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Celia. Celia.
Hi, Kat. Sorry. Well, what was it I wanted to say? I've waited so long. About barely. Right. Okay. I wanted to say a few months ago, when those numbers came in from the transport update, it was just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to look at all the efforts we've put in over the years just crumble in front of us. And the patronage was completely plummeted, and it was, I just stopped looking at it. I stopped looking at it because it was just, I wanted to cry at some point. But now with the few updates that we have, it looks like things are beginning to gradually return back to normal. However, they're returning back to normal with those challenges that we were hitting our heads against the wall to find solutions to. You know, the little consolation a few months ago is that finally the air quality is now improved, you know, without us actually doing all of those things we plan to do. But anyway, we want the transport network to thrive. We want people to get about their business. We want that interconnectivity that we've so much worked hard for to be utilized, you know, and then well, with things returning back to normal, I'm just thinking with those challenges, Kat, you talked about litter now beginning to increase in the net. You know, we have that to deal with. Again, we now have the air quality that will soon be emerging again to deal with. We're in the air quality steering group, so that's why that is particularly of a massive concern to me. But there is an additional issue that I anticipate that we might have to, we may be facing, and that's what I wanted to find out if anybody's thinking on this line with me, or is anybody anticipating the same thing that I am anticipating, and that is with the face covering. Is there a possibility that there will be interference with the cameras we have in terms of antisocial behavior or other crimes that go on the network? Will this pose a challenge in the future?
So I'll take that one. Yes, I think you're quite right to identify that could be a challenge, particularly for our CCTV operators and Safer Travel team who are trying to identify the particular antisocial behaviour issues. Obviously, we're working through that, and it's something that we'll have to address as we go along, working with West Midlands Police and British Transport Police.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any further comments? Or did you want to come back on that, Celia?
No. It's just that it is reassuring that, you know, the
Okay, right, so no further comments. Well, thank you for that. And just to sum up, we'd like the updated main report with frequently asked questions as an appendix or at the end of it for the 7 lead members to get circulated with a covering note just to say to bring people up to date and answer a few questions which some members have already asked, but other members may well be picking up but haven't requested. Okay, let's move on. It's the Bus Alliance update. Now, back in March, we were about to launch a new, bolder, better Bus Alliance vision to mark its 5th anniversary. The launch for that was delayed, postponed, and it's pleasing to see that many of the deliverables, the commitments, now have been adapted to take in the COVID emergency. To wrap that up, because this is not something which is just going to be finished by Christmas or even this time next year in its entirety anyway. So Pete or Edmund, which one of you will lead on this?
I think I will, Chair, so thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, Edmund, you're there. Hello. I know you've been on holiday and you've had a bad knee.
But a bad knee, but no, I'm good, thank you, Chair, so yeah, thank you. So yeah, just on the Bus Alliance report, and as you've introduced there succinctly, Chair, that we last reported back in March when we were trying to set out a bolder Bus Alliance, and we've set that out in the report that's in front of you today. I've got nothing further to add to the report, and just conscious of time, I'm just keen really to open it up to members for any questions within the report.
Yes, any questions or comments or follow-up? Chairman?
Yes, what I would like to know, what is the progress on us having the devolved bus services in the area? Devolved bus services, what is the progress on that? Thank you.
I'm happy to pick that one up, Chair. And in actual fact, that was the part at the end I was just going to come in to provide a very brief overview on. But following discussions that we previously had, I think John referred to in the bus update that was given, the fact that we continue to talk to government about what will happen on their 8-week notice period for the current additional funding through the what is known as the CBSSG and the BSOG. We have been in ongoing dialogue with the government, with the DFT, and also with the bus operators and through the Bus Alliance. So we discussed this at last week's full Bus Alliance board meeting, and we are seeking a further discussion with the DFT around what level of devolution might be considered at the end of the CBSSG process, and the implications of that. What we're working towards is collaboratively with the bus operators and other partners, looking at what the likely funding gaps and restrictions are if and when CBSSG finishes, and how that can and would be supported regionally. There's no firm clarification of that. Government has been very clear that through CBSSG they don't intend devolving on that current funding mechanism, but we do talk to them about future opportunities. We'll continue that dialogue and we'll continue to update members as it evolves.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I think the Bus Alliance in itself, having begun just nearly 5 years ago, has brought lots of the stakeholders and people together. And of course, its subcommittee, the Bus Satisfaction Steering Group, as we now call it, brings in our passenger champions and bus users and so on. So it's become quite a family of groups and individuals who have certainly got something to contribute to improving satisfaction patronage standards on our bus network. Okay, thank you. Right, shall we move on then? Thank you. Now another one of Edmund's now, our enhanced partnership plan. This is we are custodians of this on behalf of the Combined Authority. This is why we take regular, really continual reports on it. Edmund, would you like to update us on what's been going on there? I know you've been putting a an awful lot of work into this bit of the consultation that's just been happening. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. And I say, duly noted that the team behind me over the last 10 weeks have been working extremely hard. The public consultation on both the plan and the scheme has been out with the public over the last 10 weeks. If you cast your mind back, and it's a long time now, and a lot's gone on since, but back in March, we came to you to approve going out to public consultation. At that time, we thought it was going to be going live in March. It didn't, and we all know why. We subsequently went out for a 10-week period from July through to the consultation closing yesterday. We shifted the focus of that consultation, so it was delivered in a slightly different manner to originally expected, that rather than a lot of face-to-face work and promotion on the network, it was very much done online and through social media and through radio and advertising that way. But I'm pleased to say the consultation did close yesterday. We've had over 350 responses from both individuals, but also from organisations and businesses locally. Some of those businesses include Bus Users UK, who represent the voice of bus passengers across the whole of the UK. So it's great that they've responded as well. Just a few high-level stats and feedback from the consultation further to the report in front of you. In terms of support for the plan, I'm pleased to say 69% of people either fully agreed or agreed with the principles and the objectives set out in the plan. And there was a 10% that either didn't disagree or strongly disagreed, a very small percentage. So it's great to see that the majority are supporting the vision that's set out within the plan for the region. In terms of the scheme, which provides the detail for the corridor of the A34 and the A45 plus Lode Lane, where specific improvements are to be made, both from authority perspective and also from bus operators improving their standards. There was support, or fully supported, from the sponsors of 48%. So that was slightly down on the plan. But again, only 13% either disagreed or or strongly disagreed with what was set out for the scheme. And I think what we can draw from the scheme support is 26% didn't really have a say whether they agreed or disagreed. And I think what we saw from the consultation, about 50% of the responses don't travel on the A34, the A45. They've got they had comment on the wider plan. So I think they weren't in a position to really comment on the scheme. So what we will do over the next month is drill down into the details and comments behind both the plan and the scheme. The timeframes going forward now for ourselves is to produce the consultation report, which we'll bring back to TDC at the November meeting. We'll also review the comments on both the plan and the scheme with the reference group, and any changes which are agreed by the reference group to be made to the plan or the scheme. When necessary, we'll make those changes, and if so, that will trigger another 28-day period of voting with the bus operators. And then should that pass, which we hope it will, then we'll be in a position to again bring back a plan and a scheme which is fully supported by the operators and the wider public from the consultation that we've seen, to be legally endorsed, and then we can legally make it through the WMCA process. And alongside that, we'll be seeking the approvals from each of the individual constituent authorities through that process. I think in terms of our timeframes at the moment, as I say, the next steps are prepare the consultation report to bring that back to you in November, alongside reviewing any changes to the plan or scheme, which again will come back to you in November for a further update to hopefully make the scheme later this year.
To make the scheme, that's I understand. You'll be going out to operators again, will you, as well?
Yeah, if from reviewing the comments that we need to make changes to the plan or scheme, then we are legally obliged to go back out to the operators for their vote and their support on the plan and scheme.
Okay, fine. You say that there's a healthy amount of participants agreeing with it. What, for those who disagree with the scheme, what reasons did you give for disagreeing with a scheme that actually improves services?
Yeah, no, I can't drill down into the individual specifics. I say I got the team just this morning to pull off the 356 comments and the responses really, and there's a lot of comments that sit behind that, and we'll provide a detailed response consultation report. Just in terms of the high levels kind of things I see, some of them have very much been around buses or I'll stick to my car. So the kind of generic comments that we often see anyway in these terms of responses. But as I say, let the team dig into the detail, and we'll make sure there's a succinct and concise consultation summary report, which again will dive into those specific objections or disagreements where they may have arisen.
Okay, thank you. We'll be hearing more about that in November. Are there any questions or comments from members? Richard, your initials are flashing, so I think it's because you want to speak.
No, I don't know what's happened there. You can hear me, can you?
Sorry, you seem to be flashing on and off. There we are. Would anyone else like to speak? Say anything? Well, there you go. You must be doing good. Well, we look forward to seeing something that nears the final stage in November and shortly afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, let's move on to. We said we'd save time for this at the end of the meeting. Okay, item 13. That's Mark Collins. Mark Collins?
Me, isn't it? And then him? No? Is it the scooters?
Well, you can lead on it. Yes, okay. Yeah, you introduce it.
Oh, well, it's so
No. You can own the issue. No.
I didn't realise Mark was there, but thank you, Mark, for being there as well. Pick it up. But I mean, I know you're all so excited about these, and I imagine every member of the committee will have one in the not too distant future. What I can say, Chair, quite seriously, the invention of this transport mode, which is all very new and it's all over the world now, isn't going to go away. So get used to it. Because I have had one or two adverse comments, not least I have to say myself. I nearly got knocked for six not long ago. So there are areas when we're going to have to be careful with these, but they are being introduced now they have been in the last 2 months. I'm right, aren't I, Mark? In July and August. We have 200 in each in Coventry and Birmingham City Council. And at the back of this report, you will see that the zones that are going to be considered in your own areas. So if you want to look at that, please do. I mean, the trials are doing quite well. We've got a company called Roy, I think I got that right, who are very, very experienced since 2018. And most of these scooters will be being hired at 20p a minute, or I think it's £40 for a month, but maybe it'll change at a later time. Obviously, you probably know that people who have them have to be licensed or have a provisional license and age 16 over therefore. But I think generally speaking, the trials have gone quite well, and there's no doubt it's here to stay. And I mean, there are, I think, the objectives are there. And it really, in particular, I suppose, is cleaner and greener, which has to be one of the most important things about, I think, finding this form of transport. And it did come. I knew it was going to happen, Chair. I didn't quite know which portfolio it was coming under, but very happy.
Oh, you were busted on it.
Yeah, GDC came through a bit quick, but I mean, I could go on a lot more, but I think it's a very simple, straightforward, well-written, and thank you report, which members fully comprehend. And I'll leave it to Mark to finish off anything else he wants to talk.
Okay. Mark, you've got Mike Waters and Mark.
I'm not sure Mike's online.
Yep.
So I'm not sure Mike was online, but I can certainly thank you for the praise of that. It's well covered. I can give some initial details of since Thursday it's been running live in Birmingham and Coventry. So we up until this morning we had, I think, in the region of 5,000 hires in both cities over the first 4 days, covering circa 10,000 kilometres in total so far. So they have proved quite popular. Some teething issues that we're sort of working through with Birmingham and Coventry at the moment, but yeah, all signs so far have been quite successful.
Okay, Robert, your hand is showing.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask a question, and I appreciate we might need to go away about this. Last night, I actually noticed some people using the scooters, but sharing a scooter. So not using them individually, but having multiple people on the one scooter.
Not at the same time.
Me, that's not. Yeah, at the same time. That strikes me that's not very safe. Is there any safeguards that are being considered to work out a way around that at all? There probably isn't anything, but just be useful to know what's being looked at in terms of that kind of safe use of them.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. If I respond to that, I think part of it is education. So part of the program that we're rolling out with Voi is Ride Like Voi, whereby people can achieve a subsidised ride by taking effectively a theory test, and that has proved quite successful in other countries. So that's something we're looking to roll out imminently. There are other things around enforcement that Voi can do as well. So we're looking at introducing also number plates to these vehicles. So we have some sort of identifier that's easy to recognise for both police and local enforcement, whereby people will know who's riding it if they see a time and date when it's being ridden by individuals riding incorrectly. And then thirdly, there's also a technology element to it, in that there is capability potentially to have some pressure pads on the kickboard of the scooter, so you know whether it's one or two people that are on that vehicle at any one time. So there's a few things that are either in discussion or in deployment at the moment. But yeah, there are concerns like inappropriate riding that are certainly being looked at as part of those teething issues.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, then Ted.
Thank you. I'd like to know the rider of the scooters. Are they insured if they cause damage to property or person died? Who is liable? Either the rider, the hire, the scooter, or the company providing the scooter?
So thank you. So Voi have insurance to cover liability effectively. So it is upon Voi, and one of the mechanisms that Voi do is effectively have a verification of driving license. So although Voi will be liable, effectively they try and mitigate some of that by having that verification, and you have to take a photograph of the front and back of your driving license in order to be able to ride the scooter in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that okay, Chairman? Yes. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have to mention the fact I don't share my colleague Councillor Diana O'Allen's enthusiasm for these scooters. I have real serious concerns about the safety and the effect it has on the general public. I have concerns about enforcement. I mean, we keep getting told the police have got lack of resources to enforce most things, and I can't see that they're going to have the resources to enforce this as well. So I just want to register them. You know, I have serious concerns about them. You wouldn't get me on one, and I really am concerned about the effect it has on the general public, particularly those that have got impaired sight or disabled, and the way some of these things are going to be operating. Thank you.
All right. Mike? Mike Waters, do you wish to? Mark Collins.
No, sorry, it's okay. So again, there's a few things that are in discussion, and actually, as part of the build-up to the launch, we've been engaging with a number of the sight loss and groups around. So, for example, the RNIB and also guide dogs to try and get a very clear perspective on how we can mitigate some of those concerns. So we've been working them and not only in a way that he's worked for the deployment, but also for parking, etc., and how to encourage the better behaviours. So as part of the programme, we've got, as for example, we can do the education piece, which includes the safe riding piece. There is also a level of local enforcement within Voi. So because each of these scooters is GPS tracked, they know their location at any one time. So if they've toppled over, for example, or if they're in a location which is deemed hazardous, so it's in the middle of the pavement, for example, the team will respond within 30 minutes to pick that scooter up and move it. So I think there's a number of things in play that we're trying to do to mitigate those sort of pedestrian impacts, certainly. But again, it's one of those that we'll learn a little bit more over time about where any specific concerns are being raised, and we'll be working with Voy very closely to try and address those. We have a more comprehensive package that I could probably send to you in terms of the education piece, which is actually they're working with AA, and it's sort of AA accredited to try and improve that driver awareness or rider awareness.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Me,
Diana? Diana?
Can I come back in?
Yes, if you wish.
much,
Chairman,
Well, no,
Chairman,
sorry.
your hand is still showing. Do you want to come? No. Okay, Diana.
Well, only to come back because on a serious note, I mean, my enthusiasm is because it is a new form of transport, and obviously we're trying to create less fumes and unpleasantries in our atmosphere. But that said, I think what Ted said was absolutely right, and a lot of people are very nervous about this. As I said, I was nearly knocked for six recently, and I think Mark's just said it, because I was about to say the same thing. I know in our own, here in the borough and everywhere, we are going to have to dissuade them from going on pavements, definitely, because it's they can't share the pavements with our pedestrians. I'm going to suggest, if I may, Chair, if Mark's happy, can we have a report back in 6 months and have a look, see how it's all going on? Because I think it's mainly sort of hoping that they're going to be checked on, and as you say, the company that's making them in particular is going to be keeping an eye on how these are going. But there are issues. I mean, there's going to be the parking issue. Are they being parked? Will they get stolen? It probably will happen. I think Bobby said there are two people going on. I've seen that once or twice now, actually, sort of holding on to each other. So I think there are areas that we certainly need as a committee to look back at again. Perhaps I would say in 6 months' time, see how they're getting along, Mark, because as I said in my enthusiasm, they're not going to go away. So we've got to make sure that the community are really fear-free if we can, because everybody over 70 odd, and Ted's right. If you're disabled and so on, it's can be scary when they shoot past. Not that they should, because they can't go too fast. I don't think. I don't know what. Actually, I think 15 miles an hour. Was it 20 is the fastest it goes? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're limited to 15.5. And if I may just also respond on the sort of the feedback as well. So Voy are committed to a monthly feedback to every individual authority on not only what the usership looks like, but also what the journeys look like, where they're going and to and from, which helps us sort of combine that with other transport modes as well. They'll also include any incidents that are recorded as well, so we'll be able to react quite quickly to anything that is a pattern of behaviour or a pattern of concern. So, but by all means, more than happy to sort of respond back in 6 months' time. But hopefully, we should be getting that cadence much more regularly.
Yeah. Where are the next scooters going to be rolled out? Which authority? Which town or city? Solihull next. When's that likely to be?
The current cadence is we're likely to be launching in Walsall next, which is sort of the 1st of October. Beyond there, sort of the provisional plan is Wolverhampton after that, and then Sandwell after that. Warwickshire and Solihull are somewhere in that space, but we're not entirely sure exactly when. So there's some further conversations to have.
Ted's looking happy about that.
Well, he's happier, yes, but he, like me, knows.
Roger isn't. Go
on. With respect, Mark, and I'm only loosely, I don't want to push it too hard, but I know our officers in Solihull are a bit aggrieved. They feel there hasn't been enough consultation with them, and they need to be kept on board, because this, as I said in the beginning, it's not going to go away. And in fact, I think they're more likely to be produced than the electric bikes, probably, because they're less expensive, I guess. And most of them are high. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for it, Chairman.
Yes. Yes. I wonder whether we could revisit it as part of the briefing sessions, which we've decided to reinstate. Just touch base for half an hour, rather than having a full item. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We're looking at the Commonwealth Games Transport Plan update already. So let's see where we can deal with this. We need to know what's going on, if it's going to be October, and Walsall, Wolverhampton, and so on, then somewhere Solihull, etc. Okay. Any further comments on this from members? No. Okay, well, thank you for that. It all seemed to hit us very, very suddenly, I must say, back in the spring.
It's been a fun ride.
Members of it's literally members of the public, I understand, have been showing quite a lot of curiosity into these machines, which they've seen as they go about their journeys. Quite positively, from what we understood earlier in Diana's lead members group. So let's hope they will endear themselves to the people of the West Midlands rather than damaging them in any way. Right, thank you. Finally, notice of motion. We have no notice of motion. We've got a follow-up to Richard's question at the rail pass, for which Laura has provided a written response. Richard, did you wish to follow up on that?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, because my screen's gone blank. Well, okay, it's taking quite a time, isn't it, to come to a view? But at least it seems to be imminent. What I was concerned about was the answer to the question's fine, but it doesn't answer everything I was asking. And the two things that are missing are, has there been a contact with RDG, which is what was agreed on the previous occasion? And secondly, are Transport for West Midlands minded to ask West Midlands MPs for support to lobby RDG or not?
Laura?
Sorry, I'm on mute now. I don't think our rail colleagues are on the call still, which is a shame. But it's my understanding the answer to the first question is yes. And then I thought the lobby was to come through WMRE. But if you could let me pick that up offline, Councillor Worrell, we'll respond directly to those two if you don't feel that our written response answered that clearly enough.
Roger and I will be seeing rail colleagues tomorrow morning at the rail executive, so we may just give it a mention there. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other follow-ups to that? No. Okay. Wow. Right. So we're looking at the forward plan. Any comments on that? Fairly light for January at the moment. In February, I'm sure we'll find more than enough to be dealing with. Is it happening, Diana?
Well, not at an appropriate moment. I'm just wondering when we may be back in situ in Summer Lane. I'm not quite sure. Bearing in mind that we're trying to encourage people to go back to work, are we doing? I think Peter's gone, hasn't he? It's just a thought. What obviously we've no idea. I've no idea, but maybe nobody else has either.
Well, so at the moment they're looking to reconfigure the first floor. We've got, I think, that the COVID certification as an office building, so it's quite difficult. Then we have to make sure that everything that we do is in, so that we don't obviously lose that certificate. Now, I think the other challenge is with situations changing in the city of Birmingham too. We have to be cognizant of that. So it's with the assets team, the CA assets team, ultimately to make the decision about when and how many can gather. So we can get an update round to all of TDC on where we are with the return to the office at the moment.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, it's not just Birmingham, it's Solihull as well, but everywhere we're pretty at the moment.
Yes, no, yeah, but sorry, I just meant because the building is in Birmingham. We just have to be cognizant of what the rules are.
Solihull, well, yeah.
We have to be cognizant of everybody, but especially if they change in any one of the 7 areas. So I've been in the building. It looks really good. The team have done a huge amount of work and the restrictions are really clear. But of course, it's one person in a lift. There's quite a lot to consider, especially how we use the one-way system and whether or not we can get back into the big room, which we would need for this meeting. So I'll ask Assets for a written update, which we can share with you.
I think that's helpful, Chairman, because I think, as I say, it's like a lot of things. We keep telling everybody to go on buses and then they're nervous to go. We have to keep emphasising they're clean. In the same way, we've got to start going back into our buildings. And we must, I've enjoyed what we're doing. We're all getting quite good on this and our officers. But, we have got to try and get back to some normality, but God knows when that will be. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any further comments? No? All right, well then, until our next meeting on the 9th of November, or possibly before, if we can perhaps have a Monday morning catch-up, formal briefing, let's see. Mary?
Sorry, I'd like to go back no more than anyone else, but also I think we've got to take into consideration some of us may have underlying health conditions as well, or be caring for someone with underlying health conditions. So it is difficult. I don't relish these meetings, but I think at the moment they're the best that can be done until such times, especially from tomorrow when the new measures. The new measures are in today, aren't they?
Yes, the national ones, yes. Okay. Any further comments then? Okay. Next meeting, 9th of November, some time away, but it comes around quickly. May try and meet informally on the Commonwealth Game Transport Plan. Before then, we'll see how we're fixed regarding staffing it and organising it. So thank you, everybody, for coming along. I hope you fare well between now and then. I'll no doubt be meeting some of you online between now and then.